Hello there everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. So I wanted today to just sit down, have a little chat with you and make some St. John's wort oil because I was out in nature yesterday and I came across a beautiful patch of St. John's wort and I got really excited because this is a plant that grows around now in the summertime, so it's not available all year long. So when the summer comes, I get really excited to gather some and make an infused oil, which is what I'm going to do today. And I thought, well, why not film the process and share it with all of you, and also discuss the amazing benefits of this plant and all of just, all the interesting facts about it. So this is a wonderful plant with these beautiful yellow flowers. So St. John's wort is originally native to parts of Europe, North Africa and Asia, but it grows all over the place, pretty much everywhere in every country, and it likes to grow in sunny meadows, and it also likes to grow near people. So it likes quite disturbed areas, and it likes lots of sunshine. So now is really an optimum time if you wanted to go looking for some. It grows in most wild areas, so you can pretty much find it anywhere. And so this plant, historically, it's been used since ancient times in Europe to help with all kinds of pains and other problems. And St. John's wort got its name originally from the red substance that comes out of these yellow flowers when you crush them. And it gives homage to the Christian martyr St. John. So I found that piece of information really interesting because I didn't know that before. So that's really interesting. And this plant is actually, it's very well known to help with a certain particular issue, but it also has all these other incredible things that it's really helpful for, that I think are sometimes also quite overlooked. And it has all these other amazing properties that I will tell you about in a minute. So yeah, it's just a really, really fascinating plant. So today I'm going to make an infused oil with it, from which you can use as is, or you can also make something like a salve or a balm, which, if you guys know, it's one of my favorite things to do in herbalism, because they're just so, balms are so just really easy to carry around. They're so easy to keep, and they keep for forever for a really long time. So I'm going to make an infused oil while I talk to you about all the wonderful properties and things that St. John's wort can do. So basically here I have my St. John's wort, and they're these little yellow flowers. I don't know if you can quite see them here. They're beautiful yellow flowers, which have 5 petals normally, and it's got, basically to ID this plant, even if you're pretty sure that you've got St. John's wort, to be absolutely sure, what you do is you take one of these plants. Now I just want to show you that my fingers right now, completely normal fingers. Now I'm going to take this flower, and I'm just going to crush it just a little bit in my fingers. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but my fingers here are basically red, or sort of purple red. I hope you can see that. So it's really, really interesting. So the substance that makes the red color is called hypericin. So this is the constituent that essentially is the medicinal, sort of one of the medicinal parts of this plant, and it brings the beautiful red color that you get when you infuse it in oil, or if you make a tincture with it, which you can also do. So so I basically have a whole basket of St. John's wort. So what I've done is I've sort of, normally when you make an oil, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, and normally when people make oils, you should use the herb that is already dried, because essentially water and oil, it's just a recipe for mold and for things to go bad really quickly. However, when using St. John's wort, this is one of a few rare plants that herbalists have agreed that is best to use in its fresh form as much as possible, especially when you're making an oil or a tincture. This plant can also be made into a tea and just drank dry like a tea, but when making oils or tinctures, it has really been found important to use the plant fresh, because that's when you get most of its wonderful medicinal qualities. So as I picked it yesterday, I have actually let it just wilt a little bit overnight, just to get off the kind of moisture that was on it. And it's just kind of dried off just the tiniest bit, so it's not actually wet anymore. So it's pretty much still fresh. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off a little bit of this green sort of stems. I'm not going to be too fussy. Lots of people just like to use only the flowers, but I really do believe, and other herbalists also say, that by using more of the leaf and the stem, you get much more of the whole plant, to make a much more whole, rounded medicine, whereas you wouldn't quite get that if only using the flower tops. So yeah, well, I'm not going to use the huge stem. I'm just going to cut a few bits off and mostly use all of this plant, right? So it grows quite tall, and I've obviously cut it down a lot. So I'm not too bothered about this leaves and this stem. Only if there's too much going on, I'll cut a little bit off. So basically, St. John's wort is wonderful at helping. What it's most commonly known for is helping with depression or mild depression, and specifically certain types of depression like seasonal affective disorder. So this plant has qualities, it has properties that can basically essentially lift our spirits. I mean, the flowers, they just look like little parts of sunshine, and it has qualities that really help to lift our spirit and just help us feel a lot better. So through various trials, it's been shown to be really helpful, especially with things like seasonal affective disorder and other types of disorders. So while it might not be helpful with every single kind of depression, it certainly does help with seasonal affective disorder and things of that kind. So that's what it's most commonly known for. However, St. John's wort is also really, really incredible at healing any kind of pains, especially nerve pain. So anything that ranges from cuts, wounds and sores to much more serious types of nerve pain, for example, burns, sciatica pain, any kind of back pain or neck pain. There was plenty of studies that have been done that show that this plant is exceptionally effective at helping with nerve pain in the body and soothing and healing those areas. And this is especially where something like an oil or a balm can come in really, really handy, because you can take the oil or the balm and rub it into the affected area, wherever that may be. For example, if you have a back pain or any kind of musculoskeletal pain or muscle pain, or you know, strains, or anything of that sort. So you can rub it in on the affected area, and it will really help to soothe and heal that pain. So this is where the oil or the balm is going to come in really, really great. And especially for me, with my physical job of being a ballet teacher and being constantly active and in fitness myself, I am constantly having pains, all kinds of muscular pains. So I'm really looking forward to actually using my own oil and balm on myself, and seeing how that's going to help me. And so yeah, it's really great with any kind of nerve pain. And something else which is really interesting is that it's been proven to actually help with the herpes virus. So there's been studies that shown that it's been really effective with herpes. And herpes can basically come out in a few various ways, from cold sores to chicken pox and even something like shingles. And obviously these conditions can be incredibly uncomfortable and very painful sometimes. So again, this is where something like take the cold sore, for example, a cream or a salve can be incredibly useful on something like a cold sore. And again, it can be something that you can just carry around, like a little salve that you can just carry around in your pocket for the times that you need it. And so St. John's wort has been proven to actually limit the amount of outbreaks of herpes virus that you get, or to also drastically decrease the amount, the time of the outbreak, so the duration of the outbreak itself. So that's really wonderful for, of course, anyone who can suffer from this. There are many people who suffer from the herpes virus, which can come out in various versions or ways in different people. So it's been proven to be really helpful with that as well. And then the other thing that St. John's wort is really incredible with is actually improving the metabolic, the functioning, the healthy functioning of our liver. So our liver has our liver's job essentially is to metabolize things in our body and also cleanse our body. So that is the initial job of our liver. And so what this plant can do is essentially increase the effectiveness of our liver and the liver functioning. And so that's obviously, it can be a really wonderful thing for anyone who has any kind of stagnation in the liver, or things not working quite well as they should be. So it can really help, this plant can really help with that. And this is where people can often drink the tea, for example, with the dried plant, and it can really help to cleanse the liver and really help to kind of restore things and get the liver functioning as it should be again. And so I'm aware that people drink the tea, especially for this reason. Apart from the tea also being really good at just making you feel very calm and helping with the nervous system. So yeah, it's really interesting that it has that function, that effect on the liver as well. But however, what this also means is that since it helps our liver to be so incredibly effective at its job, The other thing that can happen then is that for anyone who is actually on any kind of medicine or prescribed medication, prescribed drugs, for example, or pharmaceuticals, if you are taking something, then what can happen is that while you're taking your medicine and your liver is all of a sudden working so well, it can actually effectively flush out all the medicine that you're actually taking, basically making your medicine completely ineffective. So that's obviously, it's not good for anyone who is on medication. So therefore, if you are on something, if you are taking prescribed medicines, you should be extremely careful. You should do your own research and certainly talk to your doctor about wanting to, for example, take St. John's wort internally. Whereas if you're just using it as an oil or a cream externally, there shouldn't be any issues at all. There's been no issues talked about anywhere where the person is externally applying an oil or a salve of this plant. It's more that when you take it internally, in the form of, for example, a strong tincture, where you have to be very, very, very careful. So please, if you are taking some kind of prescribed medication that you feel you are concerned about, please first always do your own research and talk to your doctor before you consider taking this particular herb internally. Other than that, it's a very safe herb and a very good one, a very helpful one. So that's the only thing where I would really consider caution. But apart from that, this herb has been used forever for helping, like I say, helping our nervous system, helping us feel calmer, helping us just wind down, calm down, soothe our body, heal any kind of physical pains. So it's a really, really wonderful herb. So yes, so while I'm just chatting away here, I'm just really cutting off these little bits of green stems that are really, they're not a bother, to be honest, but just not to have too much of them and to have more of the leaves and flower itself. Yeah, so with this infused oil, in a minute I will show you what we're going to do next, which is really easy, and I've most likely shown it already in my other videos. But basically I'm just trying to kind of get as much in this jar as possible, and as I've said before, it is quite helpful and quite important to try to pick your size of jar depending on the amount of herb that you will be using, because that really helps to decrease the chances of oxidation. So basically when you have too much space, too little herbs, there's a lot of oxygen inside, a lot of air, and that can really, you know, when you have the herb plus the oil, especially if the herb is not quite dry, as in this case, you have more chance of it kind of going bad, as it is. And when you introduce a lot of air into it, you give basically the microbes even more chance of reproducing, and we don't want that. So we want to try and decrease as much as possible the amount of air in this jar before we pour the oil on top. So yes, also what I've done is, from some of the St. John's wort, is I have gathered a bunch and I'm drying it currently for a tea to have later on. As I said, it really soothes your nervous system in general. It's wonderful for just calming your body, and So I will dry that as a tea to have for later on, which is something you can also do. But so basically my jar is pretty much full now. I'll add just a little bit more. And now we're just going to cover it with our oil of choice. I have mine right here. So I have a bunch of olive oil over here. And this is my preference for most of my oils that I make, most of my infused oils. I love to use olive oil, but you can use any kind of oil that you prefer, as I mentioned in my previous video about making oils. So if you want to check that out, there's lots of information there about making oils. But I really love olive oil. I love how it is on the skin. I like the smell, and it's really great for the skin in general. It's very healthy. But other things you can use are things like avocado oil, which is also a very fatty oil, which is wonderful for the skin as well. You can use things like sweet almond oil, and there's plenty of others that you can find, and just experiment and see which one you prefer and which one works well for you. I think I can actually fit a little bit more inside. So yeah, we're just going to pour this oil right on top of my St. John's wort. And basically, you will notice as the days go by, the color of your jar, the color of your oil will change, and it should go to this slightly purpley red color, as I showed you before when you crush the flowers. So this hypericin will be released from the flower, which is what we want, into our oil and making our oil medicinal. And the oil is going to absorb all those wonderful medicinal qualities of this beautiful herb. I will definitely not have enough here, so I've got a few more jars behind me. But yes, so what I was going to say is the color of your oil will also in the end depend on the type of oil that you actually use. So for example, when using my olive oil, it is much darker than something like avocado oil, for example, which is a lot lighter. So with my olive oil, my oil will be darker, and the actual shade of the red will probably end up being much darker than if I was using avocado oil, for example, which is a lot lighter in general. So if you see, for example, someone's St. John's wort oil and it's very, very red, it could also be because of the oil that they used and not necessarily because you didn't do something quite right. So just, yeah, keep it in mind. It also depends a lot on the type of oil that you are using. But it's also completely your choice which oil you go for. So I'm just almost at the top of my jar, and remember, your herbs need to be completely covered by your oil to reduce any chances of oxidation, sorry. Yes, I'm just gonna have to take my scissors. I always forget a spoon. I always forget the spoon. So I'm just trying to push my plant matter under this oil as much as possible, and I'm going to add just a little bit more in, just to cover everything up as much as possible. Perfect. So that's exactly 2 bottles. I think a little thing about oil, of course, it's depending on the kind of oil you use. I do find olive oil to be one of the more accessible and one of the more affordable types of oil, which is also why I do enjoy using it. as other oils can be a little bit more expensive, but generally try to, especially if you are making various infused oils, do try to find oils in a bulk form. I couldn't at this point find any bigger jars, bigger bottles, but normally I would try to buy more in bulk, so much bigger jars. They end up being much more cost effective that way, and in the long term it really does make a difference to your bank account. So I would really recommend, if you are making oils, to try and buy bulk big bottles or jars, as it will work out a lot better. So my oil is at the top now, and we're going to close this jar and let it do its thing, basically. So here's my oil all ready, and it's going to stay in this jar now for about 6 weeks or so to macerate, to basically pull out all those wonderful medicinal qualities out of this plant. Now, what some people like to do is they like to put their oil infusions into a sunny spot. And while that may work for some people, I do not think that is the best idea. And according to lots of other herbalists, they also agree that it's not the best idea to do that, actually, because what happens is the sun breaks down material, it breaks down plant material, and essentially it doesn't really make your oil as effective. It makes it less effective in general, because it's breaking down all the medicinal qualities and the plant material with it. So I would highly recommend not to put it in the sun, but to actually, just like with your tinctures, as I mentioned in the tincture making video, just the same as that, to instead put your oils in a cool and dark spot, because that way they can macerate gently without any kind of sunlight, basically, which is just gonna accelerate the breaking down process. So it's much better to leave your jars, leave them be in a cool, dark place for about 6 weeks, and then they should be ready to use. And now, just another note, obviously, because we are using more fresh material here, and it's obviously not dried, so there can be a chance of it slightly going off or going slightly moldy, because it is fresh material, not dried material. So if it happens that you get a little bit of mold on the top or something, try to check your jars every so often, every day or every few days. If there's a bit of mold that forms on top, it's really not the end of the world. You can just scoop it off and just continue to let it do its thing. And then when it's ready, you're going to strain the oil into a separate clean jar and separate it from the plant material. However, if you do see mold and it's kind of getting through into everywhere into your jar, that's obviously not a good sign. And you probably should not use that oil after that. If you do see so much mold growing, then the oil is probably not good to use, and I wouldn't want to use that on my skin anymore. So if it's just a little bit, it's really not too bad. But if there's a lot, I wouldn't recommend using it on your skin. So what you can do, again, which is why it's better to keep it in a cool and dark place, so you limit the chance of this mold process happening, whereas it could much faster happen when you put it in the sun. So to actually help prevent this from happening, you can actually store this oil in the fridge for the 6 weeks that it's macerating, if you would like to. And this can be especially helpful if you are right now in a quite a warm environment, perhaps, and you feel uncomfortable to just leave your oil out somewhere in your home. You can certainly put it in a fridge and just keep an eye on it anyway. Check it every few days or so, just to make sure that it's okay. But in the fridge it will definitely be a lot safer. So yes, and that's basically it. You need to give it about 6 weeks, and then you will have a wonderful, hopefully reddish colored oil. And then that will be wonderful, as I say, to use either on its own, on any affected area. For example, I will be using it certainly on my back, as I had a back injury a few years ago while I was a dancer. And I will definitely be making it into a balm. So if you guys would like to see that process, please let me know and I'll be happy to make a video on it. I know I have some videos on making salves and balms already on my channel, but if you'd like to see me do this one, please let me know and I'll be happy to record that for you, as I absolutely love making salves. So yes, I'm very much looking forward to experimenting with this. I've done this oil only about once or twice before, so it's not one that I do really often. Sometimes I don't, sometimes I'm not able to find such big patches of St. John's wort as I was very lucky to find this time. So yeah, it'll be really exciting to see how it turns out, and I will keep you guys informed. Yes, so apart from that, as I said, you can also make a wonderful tincture from this plant, as well as a tea from the dried material. So I currently have some of the St. John's wort on another tray, just drying out right now. So I'm going to be using that as a tea to help calm, bring some calm and peace when I need it. So that's another great way of utilizing this plant. And apart from that, there is also the tincture. But yes, please, as always, as I always say in every video, please do make sure you do your own research. Read up on any plant that I discuss or talk about, as of course I am not in any shape or form a medical professional. I am on a herbal journey, and I'm sharing all my knowledge with you, as well as everything I have read from other herbal publications and other knowledgeable people in this field. So please make sure you always do your own research so that you know that whatever you're ingesting or using is not going to cause you any unwanted, unnecessary reactions which you don't want. Yeah, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. It was a bit rambly, I was chatting a lot, but if you enjoy this kind of video, please do let me know, because I have lots of fun making it. And I'd love to do more of them if you guys are interested. So let me know, and I really hope that it was useful, and I really enjoyed making this oil, and I hope that if maybe you can find yourself some St. John's wort, I highly recommend to get onto it and also make yourself a lovely oil, because like I say, this oil is so versatile, and you can just keep it and use it, or turn it into a salve or balm, which is where you add either beeswax or soy wax or something of that kind. And while you have the oil version, it can be, you know, a little bit, you need to use it quite quickly, as it can become unstable due to the fresh material. When you make the salve, the balm, the soy wax or the beeswax or whatever you're using, it stabilizes the oil, so it will not go bad after that. So this is why I do love making salves, because they're really great for that reason. Yeah, so that's really it, guys. So yeah, I hope that you managed to maybe also have a go at making this. It's really so much fun, and this one is a really such a great plant for any kind of pains, muscular pains, sprains, things like this, and bruises and things. So it's a really good one to have on hand. So yes, I hope that this was helpful and informative and not too rambly. I wanted to give you all the information that I know, as this is truly such a magnificent plant. And yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and give us a subscribe to support the channel, and I'll be really, really grateful. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye guys.